When the night is at its darkest, the light of mercy begins to shine. Part 1. Close your eyes gently. Take a slow deep breath and let it out softly. Know this: you are not alone. Imagine yourself walking along a quiet path where all you can hear is the gentle whisper of the breeze. In the distance, a small stream flows peacefully through the mountains. Above you, countless stars sparkle across the night sky, while the soft moonlight spreads over the ground like a white blanket. In the midst of this peaceful silence, it feels as though someone is speaking to you with endless love and compassion. You are tired. I know. You have carried burdens that no one else could see. You have shed tears that only I witnessed. You may feel that no one understands your pain, but I have been with you every single moment. You are more precious than you realize, and my mercy is always closer to you than you think. Part 2. Remain here for just a little while. There is nothing you need to prove tonight, nothing you need to fix, nothing you need to carry alone. Simply allow your heart to rest. The cool night air gently brushes against your face, and with every quiet breath, the weight on your shoulders begins to soften. Far away, the sound of flowing water blends with the whisper of the wind through the trees. Everything around you feels calm, safe, peaceful. Then in the stillness, those gentle words return. You have spent so much time trying to be strong. Sometimes you smiled while your heart was quietly breaking. Sometimes you told everyone you were fine, even when you felt completely exhausted inside. I saw every silent battle. Not a single tear escaped my notice. Not a single prayer was ever lost. Perhaps tonight you have questions with no answers. Perhaps you are wondering why life has become so heavy, why the road has been so long, why the darkness has lasted for what feels like forever. But listen carefully. Even the longest night eventually gives way to dawn. The stars shine brightest when the sky is at its darkest. And sometimes the moments when you feel most forgotten are the very moments when mercy is quietly drawing closer to you. So breathe again, slowly, deeply, and let your heart hear these words. You are still loved. You are still seen. You are never beyond hope. The gentle breeze continues to move through the trees, carrying away another small piece of your worry, as the peaceful night wraps around you like a warm blanket. The night grows even quieter. The stars seem to drift a little closer, as though the heavens themselves are watching over you. The gentle stream continues its peaceful journey, never rushing, never worrying, simply flowing exactly as it was created to flow. Perhaps your heart can do the same. There is no need to carry tomorrow tonight. This moment is enough. As you breathe in, feel peace filling every corner of your heart. As you breathe out, let go of another layer of fear. The soft moonlight rests upon the path before you. You notice that each step becomes a little easier than the last. Then once again that familiar voice speaks with kindness. You do not have to earn my love. You do not have to pretend to be perfect. Come to me exactly as you are, with your worries, your questions, your tears, and your hopes. I already know every chapter of your story. I know the dreams you have quietly buried. I know the prayers you whispered when no one else could hear. And I have never stopped listening. For a moment, you simply stand beneath the endless sky. The silence is no longer empty. It feels full of comfort, full of mercy, full of hope. Some wounds heal slowly, just as winter slowly gives way to spring. A tiny seed rests beneath the soil for a long time before anyone can see its growth. Yet, beneath the surface, life is already beginning. Perhaps your heart is like that seed tonight. Even if you cannot yet see the change, healing may already be quietly unfolding. So allow yourself to rest. You do not need every answer before you can find peace. Sometimes peace comes first, and understanding follows later. The breeze grows softer, the stars continue to shine, and your heart becomes just a little lighter as the quiet night gently carries you toward hope. The gentle breeze begins to carry the sweet fragrance of wild flowers. Somewhere nearby, an owl softly calls into the quiet night. Everything around you moves with perfect peace. Nothing is in a hurry. Nothing is afraid. The mountains stand patiently beneath the stars, as they have for countless nights before. They remind you that strength is often quiet. It does not always roar. Sometimes true strength is simply choosing to keep going, one gentle step at a time. You find a smooth stone beside the flowing stream and quietly sit down. The cool water reflects the moon like a silver mirror. As tiny ripples spread across its surface, you begin to notice something beautiful. Even when the water is disturbed, it always becomes still again. Perhaps your heart can become still once more, too. The loving voice returns. You have been carrying burdens that were never meant for your shoulders alone. Give me your fears. Give me your regrets. Give me the memories that still make your heart ache. You do not have to carry them by yourself anymore. One by one, imagine placing every worry into your hands. The fear of tomorrow, the pain of yesterday, the disappointments, the unanswered prayers, the loneliness. Then gently, imagine placing them into the hands of the one whose mercy never runs dry. You notice that your hands feel lighter. Your breathing becomes slower. Your heart no longer feels so heavy. Above you, the stars continue to shine without making a sound. They do not struggle to give their light. They simply shine because that is how they were created. Perhaps tonight, you do not need to force yourself to be strong. You only need to rest in the quiet certainty that you are deeply loved. Even in your weakness, even in your uncertainty, even on your darkest nights. So close your eyes just a little more. Listen to the gentle stream. Feel the cool breeze upon your face, and An elderly traveler sits there quietly. His silver beard moves gently with the evening breeze. Deep lines cover his face, not lines of bitterness, but the gentle marks left behind by years of patience. His eyes shine with a peaceful warmth, the kind of peace that cannot be purchased. The kind of peace that often grows only after many nights of silent tears. He looks toward you. A gentle smile appears on his face. There is no surprise in his eyes, almost as though he has been expecting you all along. He softly says, "Come, sit for a little while." You quietly sit beside him. Neither of you speaks for several peaceful moments. The stream continues its quiet song. The wind moves softly through the trees. Sometimes, silence becomes the most comforting conversation of all. After a long pause, the elderly traveler slowly lifts his eyes toward the stars. In a calm voice, he asks, "Do you know when the human heart becomes the most exhausted?" He waits only a moment before answering. It is when a person begins to believe that there is no hope left, that every door has closed, that tomorrow can never become different from today. His voice remains gentle, never heavy, never dramatic, simply honest. He takes a slow breath, then continues. "Many years ago, I believed those very same thoughts. Every morning I opened my eyes, but it never felt like a new beginning. It felt like yesterday's pain had simply returned once again. I smiled when people looked at me, but when I was alone, only Allah knew how many tears fell in the darkness. The breeze softly stirs the branches overhead. The old traveler continues. People often see the face, but Allah sees the heart. He lowers his gaze toward the quiet stream. Its silver surface reflects the moon above. Part 5: The Quiet Path of Hope. Part 1. Moonlight stretches across the gentle stream like delicate threads of silver. The water flows slowly, so slowly that it seems to have no desire to rush anywhere. Its only purpose is to deepen the peaceful silence of the night. For a while you simply watch the flowing water. You notice your own breathing. Slow, still, steady. The world around you feels wonderfully quiet. It is as though every sound of worry, every noise of the busy world, has drifted far beyond these mountains. Only the soft song of the stream remains, the whisper of pine branches moving with the breeze, the distant call of a lone night bird. Then, silence returns once more. You close your eyes. Take a slow, deep breath. The cool mountain air fills your lungs with calm. As you exhale, you imagine every hidden burden becoming just a little lighter. Not disappearing, just becoming easier to carry. Sometimes healing begins that quietly. After a peaceful moment, you open your eyes again. Ahead of you, a narrow forest trail glows softly beneath the moonlight. It is not a grand road. It is not brightly lit. It is simply a quiet path, patiently waiting, almost as if it whispers, "Come, there is no need to hurry. Walk gently, one peaceful step at a time." You slowly rise to your feet. Each step presses softly against the carpet of fallen pine needles. The rich scent of the forest surrounds you. Fresh earth, wildflowers, vine. Everything feels gentle. Everything feels safe. As you continue walking, the darkness no longer feels frightening. Instead, feels comforting, like a quiet blanket wrapped around the mountains. Perhaps not every dark night is meant to scare us. Sometimes, it simply invites us to become still enough to hear our own hearts. The trail gently curves through the trees. Soon you arrive beneath a magnificent old oak tree. Its massive trunk carries the marks of countless seasons. It has stood through fierce storms, heavy snow, strong winds, endless rain, yet it still reaches peacefully toward the sky. Beneath its wide branches rests an old wooden bench. An elderly traveler sits there quietly. His silver beard moves gently with the evening breeze. Deep lines cover his face. Not lines of bitterness, but the gentle marks left behind by years of patience. His eyes shine with a peaceful warmth, the kind of peace that cannot be purchased, the kind of peace that often grows only after many nights of silent tears. He looks toward you. A gentle smile appears on his face. There is no surprise in his eyes, almost as though he has been expecting you all along. He softly says, "Omi, sit for a little while." You quietly sit beside him. Neither of you speaks for several peaceful moments. The stream continues its quiet song. The wind moves softly through the trees. Sometimes, silence becomes the most comforting conversation of all. After a long pause, the elderly traveler slowly lifts his eyes toward the stars. In a calm voice, he asks, "Do you know when the human heart becomes the most exhausted?" He waits only a moment before answering. It is when a person begins to believe that there is no hope left, that every door has closed, that tomorrow can never become different from today. His voice remains gentle, never heavy, never dramatic, simply honest. He takes a slow breath. then continues. Many years ago, I believed those very same thoughts. Every morning I opened my eyes, but it never felt like a new beginning. It felt like yesterday's pain had simply returned once again. I smiled when people looked at me, but when I was alone, only Allah knew how many tears fell in the darkness. The breeze softly stirs the branches overhead. The old traveler continues. People often see the face, but Allah sees the heart. He lowers his gaze toward the quiet stream. Its silver surface reflects the moon above. One night, when I could no longer pretend to be strong, I looked toward the sky and whispered only these words, Ya Allah, I cannot carry this burden by myself anymore. Please hold my heart together. For a few peaceful moments, he says nothing. Only the gentle sound of flowing water fills the silence. Then with another soft smile he says, the next morning, nothing around me had changed. The problems were still there. The loneliness remained. The road ahead was still uncertain. But something inside me had quietly begun to change. He gently places one hand over his heart. Allah did not first change my circumstances. He first began strengthening my heart. Because a heart that trusts Allah can walk through storms that once seemed impossible. You listen carefully. The mountains remain silent around you. The stars continue shining above. The peaceful stream keeps flowing without hurry. And somewhere deep within your own heart, a tiny light of hope begins to glow. Not loudly, not suddenly, but gently, like the first light of dawn slowly touching the horizon. The night remained beautifully still. The old oak tree stood quietly above you, its ancient branches gently swaying beneath the silver glow of the moon. For a long moment, neither you nor the elderly traveler spoke. There was no need. Sometimes the heart understands what words can never fully explain. The stream continued flowing beside the narrow path, carrying tiny reflections of countless stars across its peaceful surface. You notice how the water never argued with the rocks before it. It simply flowed around them, patiently, quietly, without complaint. The elderly traveler smiled as though he knew exactly what you were thinking. He looked toward the stream and softly asked, "Have you ever wondered why this little stream never stops?" You gently shook your head. "It keeps moving," he whispered, "not because its journey is easy, but because it trusts the one who created its path." His words settled gently into the quiet night. After another peaceful silence, he continued, "Many people believe that hope returns all at once. But in my life, Allah taught me something far gentler. Hope often returns one small breath at a time." You listened carefully. The breeze carried the sweet fragrance of wild lavender growing somewhere among the hills. The traveler folded his hands peacefully upon his lap. "There was a season," he said, "when I stopped asking Allah to remove every hardship. Instead, I began asking him to help me remain grateful, even while walking through it." His eyes reflected the moonlight. At first, nothing felt different. I still woke before sunrise with a heavy heart. I still carried worries that no one else could see. Some days I smiled only because I didn't want others to worry. He gave a gentle laugh, a quiet, peaceful laugh filled with understanding rather than sadness. Perhaps you've known days like that too. The wind whispered softly through the pine forest. Far away, an owl called once before the silence returned. Then something beautiful happened, he continued. Not outside. Inside. I noticed that my prayers were becoming calmer. My breathing became slower. My heart no longer demanded immediate answers. It simply rested in Allah's wisdom. He closed his eyes for a brief moment. I finally understood. Trust is not knowing what tomorrow will bring. Trust is believing that Allah will still be with you when tomorrow arrives. Those words seemed to linger gently in the cool mountain air. You felt them settling quietly inside your own heart. The traveler slowly stood from the wooden bench. Without speaking, he motioned for you to walk beside him. Together, you followed the narrow forest path. Neither of you hurried. The moon guided every gentle step. Soon, the trees opened into a peaceful meadow covered with soft grass shimmering beneath the silver night. Tiny wildflowers rested peacefully among the blades of grass. The traveler knelt beside one of the smallest flowers. It was delicate, almost hidden beneath the taller plants. "Look closely," he whispered. "This flower never asks why it isn't the tallest. It simply blooms exactly where Allah planted it." He smiled. We often spend our lives wishing to become someone else. Yet peace begins when we become grateful for the place where Allah has written our journey. The cool breeze carried the scent of fresh earth after the evening dew. You took another slow breath. For the first time in what felt like a very long while, your chest didn't feel quite as heavy. The burden hadn't completely disappeared, but something had changed. You no longer felt alone while carrying it. The elderly traveler looked toward the eastern horizon. A very faint line of soft blue had begun to appear. Night was slowly preparing to welcome the first signs of dawn. "Every sunrise," he said quietly, "begins long before anyone notices the light." That is how Allah often changes a heart. The transformation begins in silence. Slowly, patiently, lovingly. He placed his hand gently over his heart once more. Never think that Allah has forgotten you simply because your prayer has taken time. Seeds grow beneath the soil long before anyone sees the garden. You both stood quietly, watching the horizon. The stars still filled the sky. Yet somewhere beyond the mountains, morning was already on its way. And as the cool breeze touched your face once again, you quietly realized something beautiful. Perhaps healing does not arrive with loud celebrations. Perhaps it comes exactly like this. One prayer, one breath, one peaceful step at a time. Part 7. The Lantern in the Forest. The narrow trail led you deeper into the silent forest. The moon shone softly through the tall pine trees, painting silver patterns across the ground. After a few peaceful moments, you noticed something unusual. Far ahead, a tiny lantern glowed with a warm golden light. It wasn't bright, yet somehow, it was impossible to ignore. You slowly walked closer. Beside the lantern sat an old wooden sign. Only 4 words were carved into it. "Never lose hope in Allah." You stood there quietly. The elderly traveler smiled. "Do you know why this lantern is so small?" he asked. You gently shook your head. "Because hope doesn't need to be loud," he said. "Even the smallest light can guide someone through the darkest forest." He looked toward the sky. "There was a time when I believed my future had disappeared. I begged Allah to change my life immediately. Instead, He first changed my heart." The traveler gently picked up the lantern. Its warm light touched the path ahead. "Allah doesn't always remove the darkness," he whispered. "Sometimes, He simply gives you enough light for the next step." You looked at the glowing lantern, then at the peaceful trail before you. For the first time in a long while, you stopped worrying about the end of the journey. You simply took one quiet step forward, then another, and somehow, That was enough. The forest grew quieter. The stars shone brighter. And deep within your heart, hope no longer felt like a distant dream. It felt like the beginning of a new morning. Part 8: The Bridge of Trust. The little lantern swayed gently in the old traveler's hand as you continued along the forest trail. Soon, the path came to a narrow wooden bridge stretching over a quiet stream. The bridge looked old. Its wooden planks creaked softly beneath the wind. You paused. "What if it isn't safe?" you whispered. The old traveler smiled kindly. "Fear often speaks before faith does." He stepped onto the bridge without rushing. One step, then another. The bridge held him. He turned back and said, "Allah never asks us to see the entire journey. He only asks us to trust Him with the next step." You took a slow breath. Then you placed one foot onto the bridge. Nothing happened. Another step, then another. With every step, your fear became a little quieter. Halfway across, the traveler stopped and looked at the flowing water below. "There was a time," he said softly, "when I thought my life had fallen apart. But later I realized Allah wasn't breaking me. He was building a stronger heart." His words settled gently into the night. At last, you reached the other side. You looked back at the bridge. It seemed much less frightening now than it had only moments before. The traveler smiled. "Many of life's greatest fears become smaller once we walk through them with trust in Allah." A gentle breeze carried the scent of pine through the air. The stars sparkled above, and with a peaceful heart, you continued your journey beneath the quiet moonlight. Part 9: The Garden Beyond the Bridge. After crossing the old wooden bridge, the forest path became softer and brighter. The moonlight gently touched the ground, and the cool night air carried the sweet fragrance of flowers. Not far ahead, you noticed a small garden hidden among the trees. It was quiet, peaceful, beautiful. Wildflowers of many colors rested beneath the stars. Some flowers were tall, some were small, some had just begun to bloom, and some were still waiting. The elderly traveler walked slowly into the garden. He touched a tiny flower growing near a stone. "Do you see this little flower?" he asked softly. "It grows quietly. It does not compare itself with the others. It simply accepts the place where Allah planted it." You looked around the peaceful garden. Every flower was different, yet each one added beauty to the night. The traveler smiled. Many people lose their peace because they spend their lives comparing themselves to others. But Allah writes a different story for every soul. A gentle breeze moved through the garden. The flowers swayed softly beneath the moon. "There was a time," the traveler continued, "when I believed I was falling behind in life. I saw others succeeding while my own path felt difficult. But later I understood. Allah's timing is always perfect." He looked toward the sky. "A flower blooms when its season arrives, and a heart heals when Allah wills it." You stood quietly among the flowers. For the first time in a long while, you no longer felt the need to hurry. You no longer felt the need to compare your journey with anyone else's. The stars continued shining above. The garden rested peacefully below, and deep within your heart, a gentle feeling began to grow. Perhaps your story was not late. Perhaps it was unfolding exactly as Allah had written. Together, you and the elderly traveler continued walking along the moonlit path. Part 11: The Tree That Waited. The forest had become wonderfully quiet. Only the gentle sound of the breeze moved through the tall pine trees. As you continued walking, the elderly traveler suddenly stopped beside an old olive tree. Its trunk was twisted. Its bark was rough. It didn't look like the strongest tree in the forest, yet it stood peacefully beneath the stars. The traveler gently placed his hand on its trunk. "Many years ago," he whispered, "I used to think this tree was dying." You looked at the tree with curiosity. "Every winter," he continued, "it lost its leaves. Its branches looked empty. Nothing about it seemed alive." He smiled softly. "But every spring, it bloomed again." The cool breeze carried the scent of the forest around you. The traveler looked toward the sky. "One winter, my own heart felt like this tree. I had lost my work. I had lost my confidence. I believed Allah had forgotten me." For a few moments, he remained silent. Then he gently shook his head. "But Allah had not abandoned me. He was teaching me patience, just as this tree waits quietly through winter. My heart also had to wait before its spring arrived." You looked again at the old tree. It had survived countless storms, countless winters, yet it was still standing, still growing, still reaching toward the sky. The traveler smiled warmly. "Never judge your life by one difficult season. Winter is not the end of the tree, and hardship is not the end of your story." A peaceful silence filled the forest. Somewhere in the distance, a small bird began to sing, even before sunrise. The traveler listened carefully. Then he said, "Perhaps the little bird already knows. Morning is closer than it seems." You closed your eyes for a slow, peaceful breath. For the first time in many days, you didn't ask when your difficulties would end. Instead, you quietly trusted that Allah was still writing the next chapter. Part 12. The Prayer Before Dawn. The stars still filled the night sky. The forest remained wrapped in peaceful silence. Only the gentle sound of the stream followed your footsteps as you and the elderly traveler continued along the quiet path. After a while, you reached a small hill overlooking the valley below. The traveler stopped. He looked toward the eastern horizon, where the darkness had begun to soften ever so slightly. A faint glow was waiting behind the mountains. "Do you know," he asked gently, "why I love the moments before dawn?" You quietly shook your head. He smiled. "Because this is when the world reminds me that darkness never has the final word." For a few moments, neither of you spoke. The cool breeze touched your face. The scent of pine and fresh earth filled the air. Then the traveler lowered his gaze and spoke again. "There was a night when I felt completely broken. I had lost hope. I believed nothing would ever change. So I stood alone beneath the sky, and I raised my hands to Allah." His voice became even softer. "I didn't ask for wealth. I didn't ask for an easy life. I simply said, 'Ya Allah, if my heart is too weak to keep walking, then carry me until I become strong again.'" A peaceful silence followed. The leaves above whispered gently in the wind. "That night," he continued, "I didn't hear a voice from the sky. No miracle appeared before my eyes. But when I finished my prayer, for the first time in many months, my heart felt lighter." He smiled with quiet gratitude. Sometimes the greatest answer to a prayer is not that Allah changes the world around us. It is that He changes the world within us. Just then, the first bird of the morning began to sing. Its tiny voice echoed through the silent forest. The traveler looked toward the horizon. A thin ribbon of golden light slowly appeared behind the mountains. "Look," he whispered, "the sun never rushes. Yet it always arrives exactly when Allah has decreed." You watched the darkness gently give way to light, and deep inside your heart, You realized something beautiful. Perhaps your dawn was also coming. Not late, not forgotten, simply arriving at the perfect time written by Allah. With peaceful hearts, you continued your journey toward the rising light. Part 13. The seed beneath the soil. The first light of dawn slowly spread across the mountains. The stars quietly faded, one by one, as though they had completed their gentle duty for the night. The forest awakened softly. A cool breeze carried the scent of fresh earth, and the song of distant birds drifted through the trees. You and the elderly traveler continued walking in peaceful silence. Soon, you came upon a small open field. In the middle of the field, an elderly gardener was carefully planting tiny seeds into the dark soil. He worked slowly, patiently, lovingly. When he finished, he gently covered each seed with earth. Then he simply smiled. You looked at him with curiosity. "There is nothing there," you whispered. The traveler smiled. "That is exactly what I once believed about my own life." He knelt beside the fresh soil. "When a seed is buried," he said softly, "it does not believe it has been forgotten. It trusts the one who placed it there." You watched the quiet ground before you. Nothing could be seen. No flowers. No trees. Only ordinary soil. Many years ago, the traveler continued, I thought Allah had buried my dreams. Every door seemed closed. Every plan had failed. I wondered why he remained silent. He picked up a small handful of earth and let it slowly fall through his fingers. Later I understood. Allah was not burying me. He was planting me. The words settled gently into your heart. The traveler looked toward the brightening sky. A seed grows in darkness before it reaches the light. Our hearts often grow the same way. Allah prepares us in places where no one else can see. A small smile appeared on your face. For the first time, you understood that waiting is not always wasting. Sometimes, waiting is growing. The gardener quietly watered the hidden seeds. Then he walked away without looking back. He didn't dig them up to check whether they were growing. Still held safely in Allah's care. With renewed hope, you and the elderly traveler continued along the quiet path, knowing that every season has its purpose, and every seed blooms at the time Allah has written. Part 14. The door that never truly closed. The morning sun rose gently above the mountains. Golden light spilled across the valley, warming the grass that still shimmered with tiny drops of dew. The forest no longer felt dark. It felt alive. Birds welcomed the new day with soft songs, while the gentle stream continued its endless journey. You and the elderly traveler walked quietly until you reached the remains of an old stone cottage. Its wooden door leaned against the wall. Its windows were broken. Nature had slowly begun reclaiming what people had once abandoned. You stopped and looked around. "It seems forgotten," you whispered. The traveler smiled gently. "Many years ago," he said, "I thought my own life looked just like this place. Broken dreams, closed doors, empty rooms." He slowly pushed the old wooden door. It opened with a quiet creak. Inside, sunlight poured through the broken roof, filling the room with warmth. Small green plants were growing from the cracks in the floor. Wildflowers had found a way to bloom where no one expected them. The traveler looked at you with kind eyes. "Do you see? People saw ruins, but Allah still allowed life to grow here." He gently picked up a small flower growing beside the old wall. "There was a time when one opportunity after another disappeared from my life. Each time a door closed, I believed everything was over. He paused for a moment. Then he smiled. Later, I realized something beautiful. Some doors close, not to punish us, but to guide us toward better ones that we cannot yet see. A peaceful breeze drifted through the empty cottage. The sunlight grew brighter with every passing moment. I once begged Allah to reopen a door that had closed, the traveler continued, but he did not. Instead, he led me to a completely different path, one I would never have chosen for myself. His eyes filled with quiet gratitude. Looking back, I thanked Allah for every closed door, because each one protected me from something I didn't understand at the time. You stood silently, letting His words settle deep within your heart. Perhaps not every ending is a loss. Perhaps some endings are simply Allah's way of writing a better beginning. You stepped outside the old cottage. The valley stretched before you, bright and peaceful beneath the morning sky. The traveler looked toward the distant mountains and smiled. When Allah closes one door, keep walking. Trust Him, because somewhere ahead, another door is already waiting to open. With lighter hearts, you continued along the quiet path. Behind you, the old cottage remained peaceful in the morning light, and before you, a new chapter of the journey had already begun. Part 16. The afternoon slowly softened into evening as the golden sunlight drifted across the quiet valley. Elias Rowan remained beside the gentle stream, watching tiny leaves float peacefully with the current. The water moved without hurry, carrying each leaf exactly where it needed to go. He smiled. Nature never rushed, yet somehow everything always arrived in its own perfect time. A robin landed on a nearby stone and tilted its head curiously. For several moments, neither the bird nor the traveler moved. Only the peaceful sound of flowing water filled the air. Elias slowly reached into his satchel and found a small piece of bread. Breaking off a tiny crumb, he gently placed it upon the smooth rock before stepping back. The robin hopped forward carefully. It paused, looked around once, then accepted the small gift. Elias felt a quiet warmth spread through his heart. Sometimes kindness required nothing more than noticing another living soul. The forest slowly became quieter. The breeze carried the sweet fragrance of wild lavender growing along the stream bank. Somewhere deeper in the woods, a wind chime softly sang. Its delicate notes floated between the trees like tiny stars made of sound. Curious, Elias followed the gentle melody. The narrow trail curved through tall cedar trees whose branches formed a peaceful green tunnel overhead. Sunlight slipped through small openings, painting golden circles across the earth. Each step felt lighter than the last. The melody grew clearer. Soon he reached a tiny wooden cottage resting beneath a cluster of ancient oak trees. It was unlike any house he had ever seen. Its walls were covered with climbing roses. Small blue flowers bloomed beneath every window. A tiny vegetable garden stretched along one side, filled with tomatoes, beans, herbs, and bright orange pumpkins. Several wind chimes hung from the porch. Each one produced a different gentle tone whenever the breeze passed. An elderly woman sat peacefully in a rocking chair. Silver hair rested neatly beneath a wide straw hat. She smiled before Elias could even introduce himself. "I've been expecting a traveler today." Elias laughed softly. "You knew someone would come?" She nodded. The forest always whispers when someone who needs quiet is nearby. Her name was Margaret. She invited him onto the porch. Fresh herbal tea rested inside simple clay cups. Its gentle scent reminded Elias of mint, honey, and mountain flowers. For a long while, Neither of them hurried to speak. They simply watched the evening sky change from bright blue to soft shades of amber. Finally, Margaret said, "People believe silence means nothing is happening." She smiled toward the trees. "But silence is where healing quietly begins." Elias listened carefully. The words settled gently into his heart. Margaret continued, "When I was young, I believed I needed to solve every problem immediately." She laughed softly. "I hurried through seasons. I hurried through friendships, even through beautiful mornings." The rocking chair creaked gently. "Then one day I became too tired to hurry anymore." She looked toward the distant hills glowing beneath the evening light. "That was the day life finally slowed enough for me to truly see it." A peaceful hush filled the porch once again. Tiny fireflies began appearing among the flowers. One by one, then dozens. Soon the entire garden sparkled with tiny golden lights. The scene looked almost magical. Margaret whispered, "Every evening they return, not because someone commands them, simply because it is time." Elias watched them dance through the warm summer air. He realized how rarely he had paused long enough to notice simple miracles. The tea slowly warmed his hands. The evening breeze cooled his face. Birdsong faded into gentle crickets. Above them, the very first stars quietly appeared. Margaret smiled once more. "You may stay here tonight if you wish." Elias looked toward the pea. Part 17. Night settled gently over the little cottage, wrapping the valley in a blanket of peaceful stillness. Inside, the warm glow of a single lantern filled the room with soft golden light. Margaret placed a fresh loaf of homemade bread on the wooden table beside a bowl of simple vegetable soup. The comforting aroma of rosemary, thyme, and baked wheat drifted through the air. Elias thanked her quietly. Neither of them felt the need for many words. Sometimes, silence shared with another person was more comforting than conversation. Outside, the wind whispered through the ancient oak trees. Their leaves moved together like gentle waves upon a quiet sea. After supper, Margaret opened a small wooden cabinet. Inside rested dozens of carefully wrapped journals. Some were bound in faded leather. Others were covered with simple cloth. Each carried the marks of many years. Elias looked at them with curiosity. "Did you write all of these?" Margaret smiled. "No." She carefully lifted one of the oldest journals. "These belong to travelers." She gently brushed a little dust from its cover. "For many years, people have found this cottage while wandering through these mountains. They stay for a night, sometimes two. Before leaving, each traveler writes one page. Only one." Elias slowly opened the journal. The handwriting changed from page to page. Some words were neat and elegant. Others were hurried. Some pages contained only a few sentences. Others were filled completely. One passage caught his attention. "I came searching for answers. Instead, I found quiet. Somehow, the quiet answered every question I carried." Elias softly closed the journal. Those words stayed with him. Margaret handed him a small blank notebook. "When your journey continues," she said gently, "perhaps you'll write your own page." Elias nodded. "I think I'd like that." A little later they stepped outside. The night sky stretched endlessly above them. Without city lights, the stars appeared brighter than Elias had ever remembered. The Milky Way flowed across the heavens like a silver river. A cool breeze carried the scent of pine forests and distant wildflowers. Margaret pointed toward the sky. "When I cannot sleep," she whispered, "I count blessings instead of stars." Elias smiled. "Do you ever reach the end?" She laughed softly. Never. They stood quietly together. Far away, an owl called from the forest. The sound echoed gently through the valley before fading into silence. Then everything became still once again. It was the kind of silence that didn't feel empty. It felt full. Full of peace. Full of life. Full of gentle hope. As the night grew deeper, Elias returned to the small guest room. The bed rested beneath a window left slightly open to the cool mountain air. Moonlight spilled softly across the wooden floor. The distant stream continued its endless lullaby. He lay beneath a thick handmade quilt. For several minutes he simply listened. The breeze, the leaves, the water, the quiet breathing of the forest itself. His thoughts, once crowded and restless, now drifted as gently as clouds across a summer sky. Before sleep finally arrived, one simple realization settled into his heart. Perhaps peace was never something waiting at the end of the journey. Perhaps peace had been quietly walking beside him all along. And beneath the endless stars, with the gentle sounds of the mountain surrounding him, Elias closed his eyes and surrendered to the deepest, most restful sleep he had known in many years. Part 18. The first light of dawn arrived quietly, touching the mountain valley with soft shades of silver and gold. A cool breeze slipped through the open window, carrying the fresh scent of pine, wildflowers, and dew-covered grass. Elias awoke slowly. For a few peaceful moments he remained beneath the warm quilt, listening. The cottage was still. Outside, the stream continued its gentle song, just as it had through the night. A robin greeted the morning with a cheerful melody, soon joined by the songs of other birds hidden among the trees. The world seemed to awaken one gentle breath at a time. Elias stepped outside. Tiny drops of dew sparkled across the meadow like scattered diamonds. The rising sun painted the distant mountains with warm golden light. Margaret was already in the garden, watering herbs with an old copper watering can. She smiled as she noticed him. "Good morning, traveler." "Good morning," Elias replied, breathing deeply. "I don't remember the last time a morning felt this peaceful." Margaret laughed softly. "The mornings have always been this peaceful. We're simply too busy to notice them." Together they walked through the garden. Butterflies floated from flower to flower. Honeybees worked quietly among the lavender blossoms. Nothing hurried. Nothing competed. Each living thing simply followed its own gentle rhythm. Near the edge of the garden stood a young apple tree. Its branches were still small, yet healthy and full of bright green leaves. Margaret rested her hand upon its trunk. This tree was planted by a traveler 10 years ago. He never knew if it would survive. But every spring it grows a little stronger. Elias gently touched one of its leaves. It reminded him that every act of kindness leaves behind something that continues growing long after we have moved on. After breakfast, Margaret handed him the small blank notebook once again. "I believe it's time." Elias sat beneath the great oak tree beside the cottage. For a long while, he simply watched the breeze moving through the branches. Then he opened the notebook. His pen rested above the empty page. First, no words came. Then slowly, he began to write. "I thought I was walking through mountains. Now I understand that I was walking toward myself. The rivers taught me patience. The forests taught me stillness. The people I met reminded me that kindness is never wasted. And the quiet showed me something I had forgotten. A peaceful heart is the greatest place anyone can call home." He closed the notebook with a gentle smile. Margaret didn't ask what he had written. Some words were meant to remain private. As the morning sun climbed higher into the clear blue sky, Elias packed his small satchel once more. Before leaving, Margaret handed him a tiny cloth pouch. Inside were several apple seeds. "For wherever your journey leads next," she said. Elias looked at the seeds with gratitude. "They're only seeds." Margaret smiled warmly. "Every forest begins that way." They shared one final quiet hug. Then Elias stepped back onto the winding forest path. The cottage slowly disappeared behind the trees, but somehow its peace remained with him. With each gentle step forward, the valley faded into the distance. Ahead, another quiet trail curved through sunlit pines, inviting him toward another unknown chapter. The morning breeze whispered softly through the branches, as if the mountains themselves were wishing him a safe journey. And with a calm heart, a grateful smile, and hope gently guiding his way, Elias continued walking into the beautiful promise of a brand new day.